Like I mentioned before, I'm working with an elementary student, and I've been kind of thinking about what what to set limits on and sort of where to just, I guess, allow him to process and
Mm-hmm.
just be. And yeah, I think last I met with him, he was what we were doing, like he wanted to just grab different items and mix them together, like kind of like science experiments.
Mm-hmm.
And like there was honey, there was honey and water and like or he wanted to like and mix them together. And I have a sand tray, and he to just add the honey in the sand tray. So I wasn't sure like where to sort of put limits, and
Mm-hmm.
you could just allow him to be.
Yes. How did you handle the honey and the sand tray?
Well, the first time I did tell him like, let's let's put the honey in a cup instead. But then like the following session, I kind of just said like, well, what's gonna happen if we put the honey in the sand tray? It might become sticky or something. And then so he did put a little bit, and we
Mm-hmm.
did see like what happened with it.
Oh, good.
So I guess, yeah, I approached it differently
Mm-hmm.
um, in different times.
Yes. Oh, it seems to me like you're really working the edge of, what we're meant to do. Um, we only set limits when they're really needed, right? Otherwise, we give them choice, right? But I think dumping a whole jar of honey in a sand tray would be a place I would set a limit because it wouldn't allow people to use that sand tray for a while until it really got cleaned out, right?
Yeah,
Um, yeah, so that would be a reason to set limits if you're going to modify one of the toys in the room or the furniture in such a way that it can't be used. But I love the idea of taking a little part of the sand tray and a little bit of honey and doing an experiment together. I mean, I think that's really modeling how we want to go through the world. We're more curious about things, right? We're kind of thoughtful, we're deliberate, we observe closely for cause and effect. You're basically helping control impulsivity, right? It's very therapeutic what you did. So the limits must be set, right? But it's really figuring out where to set them. I mean, my general question that I try to work through in my mind when somebody makes a request in the therapy room is how can I say yes? How can this person do what they want to do in the room and I'm comfortable with it?
Michael, I have a question.
Mm-hmm.
So you said set limits when needed, otherwise give them choices. Can you give me an example of when you set a limit and when you give them a choice?
Mm-hmm. Sure. Um, let's say a child wants to come in and shoot rubber bands. You have a pile of rubber bands. And then they say they want to shoot rubber bands at you. And you have a conversation with the child about how they can shoot rubber bands at you and you're comfortable with it. Some therapists might only be comfortable by turning their back and having the child shoot rubber bands at their back. And that would be a perfectly fine place to say yes. And then the therapist is comfortable. The child might say, no, 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 I want to see your face. You turn around when I do this. Like, okay, I can turn around, but now I'm going to want to hold, a book over my face so I can protect my face. Like, okay, you can hold the book, and then the child can shoot rubber bands at you, and you're looking at them, facing them, and you're comfortable because you have some protection. Then the child does this for a while and has a lot of fun, and they see the paper clips, and then they want to shoot paper clips at you. And I think most therapists there would set a limit that they don't want to have paper clips flying around their office. Now, another therapist could think, okay, well, why don't we set up a target practice and you can shoot paper clips at a target? And that would be a way to say yes to paper clips in the office in a way that you feel comfortable. So this is just kind of one example with rubber bands and paper clips that are kind of office supplies that children will use as play items in the room. Does that help you a little bit with that?
Yes, thank you. What about for teens? Because I know sometimes, so we have a lot of, our supervisor bought like a lot of board games and stuff like that. And then we also have a little sand tray in the office. But sometimes like if I've had a student come in and they play really rough with the sand tray and then the sand starts flying everywhere. I'm always hesitant to say something. Or I'll say, oh, be careful, be careful. The sand's getting everywhere.
Yes. Oh, what an interesting point. I think that all therapists who work with sand trays come up against this. That, like, what's the level of messiness that we're going to tolerate? Children and teens, they don't know why they want to come in and make a mess, and they don't allow themselves fully to be aware that they're doing it. But a certain portion of our clients come in and they're unconsciously driven to create a mess and a disturbance in our room. And unconsciously, they're wondering, like, what is the therapist going to do, right, if I do this? Walking in with muddy shoes, right? Making a mess in the sand tray, making a mess with the art supplies, doing watercolor and spilling the water all over the place, and not really know why they're compelled to do these things. So it really does kind of raise our tension state, right? When a child keeps on dumping sand out of the sand tray and onto the floor. And I do really try to just accept this, maybe help them take some paper and scrape it off and put it back in, and maybe model a little bit of putting it back in, and just tolerating that as much as possible until it gets terribly excessive. And some therapists might just let it get a little bit excessive. Other therapists will allow lots of sand to be placed everywhere and just get the vacuum, clean it up, replace the sand, and hardly make an issue of it. So a lot of it comes to how you want to run your space, you know, what you're clinically comfortable with.
Mm-hmm. So what I'm understanding, sorry, what I'm understanding is that children and teens unconsciously make a mess to test maybe the adult's behavior to see how they react. Is that correct?
Yes. And to just, to be messy and to be greedy is a way to express their deprivation. Having somebody else clean up their mess because they don't have that experience, you know? Nobody's paying them mind. And we talked about how the greediness can be expressed, right, with food,
Mm-hmm.
right, with wanting to have all the pens or all the crayons, or just start collecting things in the clinical space, right, to communicate that. So yeah, the pull is right towards becoming a disciplinarian. I think a lot of us can be pulled in that way, where we're making corrective comments, you know, like a parent might do who's getting a little bit too talky. That's the place that we want to avoid. It's to receive the
Sorry, you cut out on
expression.
my end. I don't know.
Oh, okay. Can you hear me now? Am I back?
I can hear you. Eric, can you hear Michael? Because he cut out.
Yeah, I can hear you
Okay.
now.
Okay. Yeah, I think I was unstable for a moment. Yeah, so it's kind of understanding that mind of deprivation, right? The child or teen who's been through deprivation will come with these symptoms of messiness, greediness. These are under kind of this umbrella of symptoms that Winnicott refers to as the antisocial tendency, right? That tendency to come into a clinical space and engage in antisocial ways, right? Stealing things, grabbing a pen from your desk, eating up all the granola bars. Yeah, so the unconscious test that you're talking about is, yeah, what will happen if I do this? What will they do if I do that? Will I still be accepted, or will I be rejected, thrown out, expelled, not accepted anymore? So the child is looking for that space that can contain all of those destructive impulses. They can be contained within that space and then understood. Does that relational dynamic make sense to you in the context of these symptoms?
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, it does. Same here. It makes a lot of sense. And it seems like it's a lot of testing. Like
Oh, it's
it's
a lot of testing, definitely. And the younger the child, right, and the more disturbed the child, right, you'll see these more amplified.